In this video, I'm going to talk about a painting my father completed in 1973 called Bacchus. And this painting was in a large show of his paintings at the Albright Knox during that year. Okay? I'm going to sit down and talk about it and look at it with you. Okay. In this case, my father is dealing with limited means, just two colors, white on black. And he started these ideas for all of these paintings, this whole series, in small sketches. So he'd do little thumbnail sketches, and maybe make them a little bigger, maybe a little bit bigger painting. And then he would have his idea figured out, and he would increase it to the large scale of the surface here. In this case, he put down tape, painting tape, and then he would paint over the painting tape with black paint. Then when it was dried, you use a gel medium too underneath it so that it lifts off properly. Then he would pull the paint back from the areas and he would get this crisp, clean design, okay? And that's a strong feature of this period of my dad's work, okay? In this case, the composition is kind of a puzzling one because it has two lines running through the center of it, and he's done that in a number of the paintings from this particular time frame. He was influenced by Native American blankets. He was influenced by a number of things. But in this case, you have two sides that appear to be mirror images of one another, but they're not exactly mirrored images. There's variation within them. The lines over here, and the lines over here, and the lines over here, and the lines over here are very different. The lines down here break along the diagonal. The lines up here end at the edge of the canvas. So we have in our minds, we have an expectation of order. We always try to make sense of what we look at. This type of op art painting utilizes that context of trying to make sense of what you're looking at and then just altering it slightly or altering it a little bit more. In this case, it's a very slight alteration. So you come to the painting and you see the big configuration of the white against the black. Then you start looking at it and it starts to move around. The reason it starts to move around is one, you have stereoscopic vision. You have two eyes looking at it. You have peripheral vision brought about by this stereoscopic vision. And you take the whole thing in, and by looking at the whole thing, it fills up your entire visual field so that you can't sort of like look away from it. It becomes very active and full.
So what would you say, where do you see the movement? You could stand up and point for the viewers. What's happening for you when you're looking at it?
I've been greatly influenced by my dad for many, many, many years. That you see the whole thing is a total image. It's pleasing as a total image, but it is made by altering expectations. The top plane balanced by the bottom plane, like it's mirrored, but it's not. There looks like this shape up here of triangles is mirrored down here, but this one is a little larger. It looks like these lines are mirrored down here and down here, but they're not. They're changed.
Do you know what? There's also only 4 lines on the side and 6 on the bottom on each side. So I was counting them.
When I was teaching, there's a principle called leveling and sharpening, where something almost appears complete, but it isn't entirely complete, and we complete it in our mind. We can't help but complete it in our mind. We can't keep it in our mind if it's disorganized. If it's a field of chaos, it just sort of functions as a field of chaos. This is a field of order. And by doing that, you constantly try to bring order to it. When you're looking at it, utilizing your dual vision, your stereoscopic vision, you try to bring order to it. And in the process of trying to bring order to it, it consistently changes because it defies the painting itself defies the order you apply to it. And in that balance, it keeps working. We try to keep thinking about it. It moves. Diagonals are very fast shapes. and design these kind of shapes in here. And my dad was an artist who was very influenced by architecture and very influenced by design, okay? You have these very quick shapes coming in here, the diagonals coming in. They come in here and they just sort of like collide in that center plane. These lines are a little slower because they're parallel to one another. We see them as a slower unit of activity in space.
Because they're even?
Because they're even, and because they're parallel, and because they're the same. So he's a very tricky painter. He was able to manipulate the space in such a way that it created this kind of ambiguity. Now, to understand this, you have to understand that he's coming out of very, very, very interesting abstract sculptures for like 15 years prior to this time. And he was dealing with very simple forms of positive and negative space. That same range of possibilities is what's going on here. And it makes it an interesting painting to look at because the viewer is as much a part of the painting as the painter is a part of the painting.